As I mentioned, my name is Jan Romano, and I mentioned I work for Mass Higher Metro North Career Centers. And so now you know who I am. What do you need to know? Well, you need to know how to use Excel charts. So I'm going to teach you what you need to know and how to do it. And so here we go. I'll be jumping into Excel files as well. And so at the end of this presentation, I'll be glad to do a file transfer with the Excel files that I'm using, as well as this PowerPoint presentation. So what are the topics that we're going to be covering today? Well, obviously it's charts, and what are chart types? What are the simple charts? How to create charts with multiple worksheets, with all the data on different sheets, how to format the charts, and even to create a pivot chart, and using our quick analysis tools. Now, I'll be honest with you, that's a lot of information for an hour and a half training, but I'll do my best and get at least the basics done so that you can see how to create charts. Now, I have a couple of questions for you to put in the chat. Have you created charts before in Excel? And what would you rate your Excel level as? Are you a beginner, an intermediate person, or an advanced user using Excel for quite a long time? So check that out. Check those questions out. Put those answers in the chat. And if you are a beginner, don't worry. You're in the right place. Even if we're skipping over some things that you don't know, like formulas or something like that, don't worry. You still are able to create charts with some basic knowledge of Excel. Some of you are mentioning that you're intermediate, and some of you are advanced as well. So that's great. And a lot of you have never created charts, or maybe you created charts a long time ago, as you're mentioning in the chat. So that's great. Good to have you. So think about this. Whether this is review, which is going to help you to become more confident, or if this is new, you are going to become more powerful with your knowledge. You know, knowledge is power. You're going to become hopefully more confident, and you're going to be learning something that most jobs that require any type of calculations or analyzing data needs. You need this knowledge in order to create charts and visualize the data for maybe a team or a group of people that you're working with. So this is good information. I do have on the on the YouTube channel for Mass Higher Metro North, and you can see that on this slide again that I mentioned the YouTube channel. We do have several Excel tutorials that I've created, and I'm also recording this particular session to put on YouTube, so that way there you can review what we went over, and anytime review how to create charts. Well, thank you very much for putting that information into the chat. And so let's start with what are the different types of charts that we're able to work with in Excel, and why would we use them? So here's what I find the most interesting when I teach, especially face-to-face, that you all have had, maybe you use the word graph, maybe you use the word chart, but you've had some understanding of what a chart is, but maybe not what use the chart is for. Like, what chart should I use if I am creating this type of data versus this type of data? So I want to go over just some preliminary information about what charts are available in Excel and why we use them. And so a line chart is very frequently used, but it's used for showing trends over periods of time. So if you're trying to show anything that has to do with time, line charts are a good chart to use. Column charts are one of the favorites of most people, and they're typically used to compare several items in ranges or values that you want to compare. In a clustered column chart, you'll see that can be used to compare multiple categories of data. And there could be sub-items and information within information. So a clustered column chart. A stacked column chart just means that you're going to take a column chart and it's going to be stacked one on top of the other. And that's really to compare items in specific ranges and show a relationship between those values. and base it on part of the whole piece of the, typically we say pie, and notice pie charts are next, but a pie chart and a stacked column chart kind of give the same information, but just in a different way. So a pie chart represents, proportion of values based on the total data, and each piece has a certain percentage. There are bar charts. So we've just talked about some of those bar charts, and they're typically used to compare several categories of data, and you visualize that data kind of distributed throughout what we call our categories that we may have in our spreadsheet. There are area charts that illustrate the magnitude of a change between data points. And a combination chart will show maybe a bar chart and a line chart together. An XY scatter chart, which sometimes is called a bubble chart as well. And that's for correlations in between two sets of values. Maybe you've never heard of a waterfall chart before. And that waterfall chart can show series of intermediate values leading up to a final value. And how about a radar chart? Two-dimensional chart, could be three-dimensional as well. And it's showing quantitative variables on axes, starting from one point up. Stock charts, well, you buy a stock, you want to know what the high, the low, the close of the stock is per that day. A donut chart, well, a donut chart has rings for additional data. So a pie chart has a whole based on 100%, and so does a donut chart, but a donut chart has different levels of variables as well. Histograms, you might have heard of those. Those are for plotting time-related data as well, and to spot and track trends. There's a tree map one for hierarchical view of your data and for trends. So you have several pieces of the chart that we want to go over, but you have several choices now on what chart that you want to create. And I want you to take a look at this slide. This slide shows a typical column chart. You can also call it a bar chart. But it has two axes, one on the left, one on the right, and it has a third axis at the bottom. And so we call these the horizontal and the vertical, and then the secondary vertical we have here. But I also want you to notice that there's a legend on the right-hand side that shows the different colors of the bar. You also have a chart title. You can have some grid lines, and you can have some data labels. And so all of this is showing you the different pieces, the different parts of a chart. And so we want to understand the terminology. Years ago, we used to call the axes something a little different, and now we just make it very easy. It used to be called X and Y. Now we just call it horizontal and vertical, much easier to understand. But these pieces of the chart all can be customized. They all can be formatted. They can be added and taken away as well. The colors can be changed. So I want you to think of a chart as one object, but it also has many different pieces to it. So one object grouped together by many pieces. Now I'm going to stop for just a second because someone's mentioning that my voice is garbled at certain times. So I'm hoping that's not happening for everyone. If it is happening for everyone, let me know. But for that person who might be having trouble with the audio, I advise everybody this, that if you're having trouble, you jump out of the WebEx and then you come right back in and join again. And that usually will help with any audio issues. So thank you. Some of you are mentioning that my voice is clear and that you can hear it and that it's not happening at your end. So that's great. And it's just intermittent sometimes, and I'm sorry that that is happening to some of you. So again, jump out, jump back in, and hopefully that clears anything up. All right. And at any point right now, you can stop and ask a question. So charts are visuals of the data that you have in Excel. So I will create a chart with you for sure. I'll be demonstrating quite a lot of this as we go along. But let's continue with this PowerPoint for a moment. So creating charts, I want you to take a look. steps 1, 2, and then it says or. And actually, I have even an additional slide that's going to show you another way to create a chart. So I would like to show you how to create a chart using the F11 key. Look at step number 2 on this slide. That'll produce a chart on a separate sheet, separate worksheet. Or I can do insert chart to add the chart on the sheet that I'm working on. So I have a shortcut key, which is the F11 key. I have the options off of the ribbon that I can use, and those are 2 ways to create charts. And then I want you to notice that there'll be a quick analysis tool button. Now that depends on the version that you're using. So I just want to bring to your attention that I am using Office 216 in my home, Office 219 in, 2019 if I were in the training center. And these are the full version software that we've downloaded on the PC. So this is not Office 365, this is the full version. So if you're working on a Mac or you're working on an Office 365 subscription, you may have less functionality or it may be different. And so again, I just wanted to let you know what I'm using here to demonstrate these. But one of the buttons is called the Quick Analysis tool. It's not on the ribbon. I'll show you that you can get it quickly when you select your values. This appeared, I believe, in version 13, 16, and 19. So if you're using an older version, you may not have the Quick Analysis tool button, so keep that in mind as well. So let's jump over to Excel, and I'm going to use very simple spreadsheets so that you're able to understand the data quickly and you're able to see visually how to create the chart. So I want you to see that, notice Girl Scout cookie sales, mint caramel, oatmeal, and peanut butter. I recently bought 4 boxes from a friend's daughter, and so these are very relatable to me right now. But these are the cookie sales for the Girl Scouts in whatever troop it is, and we want to create a chart from it. So I just want to show you the 3 ways first. And if you don't have the F11 key, maybe you're on a Mac or on a Chromebook, maybe you could Google that and see in Excel, what is the button that you'll use instead of F11. So in Excel, and maybe there'll be a button that you'll be able to use. But not to worry, you'll still be able to create charts. And let's take a look first. So I'm just going to bounce back to my PowerPoint because I want to make sure that you see this. See, these are the reference slides. These are the slides that are going to have the directions on them. And so what you want to do is make sure you understand it says highlight the cells you want charted, but look in parentheses. Select all the values and all the text that you want in your chart. So what you don't want to do is this. And I'll demonstrate this so you can see what you don't want to do. You don't want to just highlight your numbers. And then, for example, I will go up to Insert. I will look at these charts and decide that maybe I want a line chart. And maybe a column chart, not a line chart. I'll do a line chart after, I think. And I'll do a clustered column. But I want you to notice that it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then it says series. Blue is series 1, red is series 2, green is series 3, and purple is series 4. I don't know what series 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is. Well, I could guess that it's probably the weeks. And the 1, 2, 3, 4 down the bottom are typically on the left. Oh, these are the cookies. So is this a good representation of my data? No, because the labels aren't there. And that's why I'm going to just click and use the delete key now. That's why in the instructions, select all the values and all the text that you want on your chart as well. So let's take a peek. I'm going to highlight cookies over to week 5, down to peanut butter, and I'm not going to include the total. I will show you later how you can do that, but I'm not going to include the total right now. And I'm going to go to insert off of the menu, and I'm going to go to, again, this column chart, and I'll do a 2D column chart this time and take a look. Now this chart is much better because it's showing week 1, week 2, 3, 4, and 5. And down the bottom, it's showing that blue is mint and caramel is red and oatmeal and peanut butter. Okay? So that's a so much easier chart to look at. So if I were to look at this chart, I would see that the blue is mint. So which week did we sell the most of the mint cookies in? And that would be week 3 because the blue bar is the tallest. So remember, I mentioned to you that using in trying to display time would be a good thing to use for a line chart. So I'll show you how to turn this into a line chart in just a moment. But I wanted to show you that you can create a chart and then you can size it with your sizing handles. You can make it larger, you can make it smaller with your sizing handles. You can go to the chart and grab onto it. You can copy the chart using control drag. You can click and delete the chart. So you can decide where to put this chart. You can also change the colors and change the chart. But the first thing I wanted you to see was, what did I highlight? I highlighted all of my labels and my values, and I used the insert off of the ribbon and went to charts and decided what chart I wanted. Now I'm going to highlight again, but this time I'm going to hit the F11 key. So on my keyboard, I have the F11 key, so I'm going to hit F11. And I want you to notice down at the bottom, we were in sheet 1. We are now in chart 1. Chart 1 was created and named automatically by Excel when I hit the F11 key. I'm getting the same type of chart because that's the basic chart. That's the default chart, but I can change it. But where is it? It's on a separate sheet. So right now on sheet 1, I have this chart here, which is basically the same chart. And oh, I see that let me delete this and let me try it again just so you can see. Again, week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, cookies down to peanut butter, and insert, and you decide what chart you want, and it will build that chart. And you can move it wherever you like. So I have really the same charts right now in a separate sheet as well as on sheet 1. Okay, now I didn't select the Girl Scout cookies because that's going to be way up here in the chart title, and I'm going to be able to take the Girl Scout cookies and copy it, and I can take it into the chart title and I can paste it in here, or I could go and click select data and select the data from here, and oops, sorry, didn't mean to bring that up, and or I could type in here. All right, so I'm going to type in Girl Scout cookie sales. I can also do just a quick way of referencing this cell to this title as well. But I'm not going to highlight the Girl Scout cookie sales because I have rows 2, 3, and 4 that are empty. And if I highlight those as well, that wouldn't be good on my chart. So again, sometimes I'll keep the title for last and type that in or paste that in or reference it to a cell. So how's the first way feeling for you? All right. Insert chart, right? Or F11, highlighting the labels and hitting F11. Okay, so let me take this chart right here and let me click on it and delete it for a second. And let me show you the third way. And remember the third way, let me go back to the PowerPoint so you can check this out, is using the Quick Analysis button. And the Quick Analysis button is going to show up automatically if you have version 13, 16, and 19. And let's take a look back to the Excel spreadsheet. Let me highlight all of these cells again. And here, right here, is the Quick Analysis button. And when I point to it, notice there's formatting, there's charts, totals, tables, and spark lines. So I'm going to click right now on charts. Notice the different types of charts, and I can get more. I'll take the clustered column. And when I click once on the clustered column, again, I get my chart. This is a clustered column chart, and I quickly created it using the quick analysis tool. So I'm going to delete it and show you again. When you highlight, the quick analysis tool will pop up if you have the right versions, right? And that quick analysis tool, when I bring my mouse to it, has different categories, and one of those categories is charts. And let's say I wanted to do a line chart this time. I could click on line, and there's my line chart. Okay? All right, I'm going to delete this. So 3 different ways to create a chart, and then we'll talk about what to do with the charts. And you'll get this presentation. Remember, I'm going to do a download and transfer it, basically. You can upload it, transfer it to you at the end of this presentation. You'll also get those Excel files that we're using along the way. So now we've got a chart, and in this case, we did several types of charts, but I put the chart on chart 1 sheet, and I can name that sheet anything I want, but I want to talk about certain things that I can do with this chart as well. So if we're looking at the chart, we can see that week 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is at the bottom. So what if we wanted to, so we're focusing on the weeks. What if we wanted to focus on the candy bars? Now, we're still focusing on the candy bars, but we want the chart to focus. So there's plenty of things that I can do here. And one of the things that I can do is click on the chart and then look up on my ribbon. I will have chart tools. So I'll have a new group of tabs, and there's 2 of them. One is called Design, and the other one is called Format, and they're both under Chart Tools. So that only shows up when I click on the chart, whether I'm in the spreadsheet, and the chart is right beside the spreadsheet or below the spreadsheet, or whether I'm in a separate sheet that I used F11 for, or whether I created the chart with the Quick Analysis button. It won't matter. When I click on a chart, Design and Format show up under Chart Tools. You're also going to see these symbols on the right-hand side. You'll see the plus sign so that you can add elements to your chart quickly. You'll see the paintbrush so that you can change the color scheme quickly. And you'll also see chart filters, which is the funnel, and you'll be able to edit data points and names to make them visible on your chart. Now, these are built in. These are quick buttons that you can use, but you can also go up and use the ribbon. So I'm going to click on Design underneath Chart Tools. And the first thing I want you to notice is you have from left to right, Add Chart Elements, do a quick layout, change the colors. Chart Styles, switch row and column, select New Data, change the type of chart, and move the chart. So if you created a chart on a separate sheet and you decided you wanted to move it to the sheet where your data is, you can move the chart. So the first thing I'm going to do is do this button here. It's called Switch Row Column. I'm going to just click on it once, and I want you to notice now. At the bottom it says mint, caramel, oatmeal, and peanut butter. What happened? Well, now week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are the legends. And the legends show you the colors. So right now, if I were looking at the mint cookies, I would notice that the green, and again, sometimes you're seeing it off of your browser, and so your colors may be a little different looking. So right now, the mint has blue, red, green, purple, and kind of a teal color. And the green is week 3. And that's the tallest bar. So that's saying to me that week 3, we sold the most mint cookies. Now, in week 2, we sold the teal color, which is week 5. I should have said in week 5, for caramel, we sold the most. How about for oatmeal? Caramel again. And how about for peanut butter? Oh, week 3, we sold the most. So it's a different way of looking at the data, but you can certainly click here, switch column and row up on the ribbon, and that switches the axes and what we're seeing. And now we're seeing week 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, it's depending on how you want it to look. And then I want you to notice, obviously, that's time. So maybe I'll go to this button up here, change chart type, and choose instead on the left-hand side, I'll choose a line chart. And there are different types of line charts. I'll just choose the basic line chart and click OK. So I want you to look at the blue line at the bottom. It says Mint. So how did we do selling the Mint cookies? Well, starting off in week 1 and week 2, we did pretty even. And then we sold on week 3 an amazing amount. And then week 4, we didn't do as much. And then week 5, we went down even further, but stayed pretty much the same as week 1 and 2. So you can see the trend or how we sold going across time. So if you look at the blue line, and then you compare it with the red, green, and purple lines, you can see that, oh, there was pretty consistent in sales. The purple line is the lowest, so that's peanut butter. And then the red and the green, kind of a neck and neck, and so that was the caramel and the oatmeal. And you can see how the sales were over time. So using a line chart is good for time. Remember what was the default? The default was a column chart, right? So I'm going to put it into a clustered column chart, and I'll put it back and take a look. And so you can see that each week. Now I want you to know that this information is linked to your source data. So let's chat about that. So I'm going to change the chart type to a line chart. Then I'm going to go back to sheet 1 and build another chart on this sheet. Highlight all of my text and values. Insert, choose a chart that I want. I'll do a column chart. I'll put it over here on the right. Everything is linked to this data. What do I mean by everything? The charts that I've created. In chart 1 at the bottom, so my line chart, and my chart that I put on sheet 1. Now notice I didn't change the titles yet to these charts. They're not perfect yet, but I just wanted to show you what happens if I change one of these numbers. All the charts that are linked back, every chart is always linked back to the data. So if the value changes, so will the charts. So I want you to notice this number right here in cell D6. It says 182. And let me change that to just 82. And watch when I hit enter. Watch week 3 on the chart that's on your screen. And can you see that week 3's, what color would that have been? Remember that was the mint that we were working with. So the blue bar got shorter. And then if I go back to chart 1, where it's showing me my line chart, and you'll see that change is made as well. So week 3 is now more level with week 2 and 1, and the sales went up on week 4 and went down on week 5 now, because the data is, again, always linked to the chart. So whatever I do here changes the chart automatically. I don't have to hit refresh. It automatically works. How are we doing, everybody? Anybody have a quick question about what we're going over so far? Is it making sense? I hope so. And we'll continue. And if you have anything at all, I'll keep my eye on the chat as well. I'm going to go back to chart 1 and maybe come up here. Remember, we could put a title here. So Girl Scout cookie sales. But make sure you type it right when you type. And remember, this is a line chart. And so why don't I go up to design off of the ribbon and see what styles I might prefer. So I'm going to come here and click this down arrow where the more button is. And so every scroll bar on choices has a kind of a arrow with a line over it, and that's the More button. So I'll click the down arrow and look at these styles. So I'll click this one and take a look how quickly I've changed the style, meaning the design, the look of, the colors, and it looks maybe a little bit more easy to read. Let's take a look at some of these other choices. If I choose this one, you can see that there's kind of a grid in the background. So that does not change though. Watch when I go back to sheet 1. That doesn't change all the charts. All right? So just remember, whatever you do to one chart, that's the object that you're changing only. So you can also add elements to these charts. And so that's again on the Design tab. I'm going to use this first button on the left-hand side, the Add Chart Element. And I think I will choose some data labels. And maybe I want these data labels, as I move my mouse around, I can see the labels. Maybe I want them inside each one of these columns. So I'll do inside. Well, can you see this? I have the numbers that are labeled inside each one of these columns. That's a choice. That is a data label. Well, let me hit undo. Remember, you don't like something, you can always hit undo. What I prefer to add sometimes to a chart, especially if I am not going to have it along with the data visible to the audience that maybe I'm using to present this data with, what I'm going to do is choose Add Chart Element again, which is the first button on the left under Design, because this is version 16. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a data table this time. In the data table, I'm going to put, let's say, no legends. And the legend just means the colors, because the legend is already there. I don't need an additional legend. But notice what it placed on this chart. It placed the names of the cookies, the week labels, and the values so that I can see. Now, I can't change these numbers here. That's not really the source data. This is a visual of the source data. So anytime I want to change a number, I always come back to the original data and then make the change, and these charts will change. But now I've at least added the data. And so let's take a look at week 1, and that's peanut butter. Do you notice peanut butter? And the color for peanut butter is purple. And you notice that says 32. Well, by mistake, someone thought an 8 was a 3, so we're going to change that by typing over it with 82. Now you watch when I hit enter, and remember this is peanut butter for week 1. And notice on the chart that changed, and notice peanut butter for week 1, the number automatically changed here in the chart as well. So it represents always the numbers that are on the spreadsheet. Same thing happened when I went back to chart 1, is that the chart automatically changes. Look at the purple line, and you can see that as well has changed. So the data is definitely linked to every chart that you create. When you click on a chart, whether it is part of the spreadsheet or whether it is a separate sheet, you'll always have Design at the top with these buttons to add any elements to the chart, to change the layout of the chart if you prefer, to choose colors that you might want to choose a monochromatic look to your chart. You can certainly do that. Or remember, you can change the styles of the chart. So with the different backgrounds, here we go. You can switch the rows and columns that way there that the focus is different. You can actually select more data with this button, and you can change the chart type. And if I wanted to move this to a separate sheet, take a look. I would click on Move, and I would want to create a new sheet called Chart 2 or whatever chart that I wanted to call it. And I click OK. And so where will it move it to? It'll move it to a new sheet for me called Chart 2. So let's click OK. And it moved it to this new sheet called Chart 2. So now sheet 1 doesn't have a chart on it, but I have a Chart 1 which is my line chart, and my chart too as well. Is that making sense, everybody? So while you're thinking of maybe a question, I'll go back to my PowerPoint and make sure that you know that this data, this information, maybe you're frantically trying to write it down. Remember, this is a PowerPoint that I'll be able to give to you at the end of this training. So chart tools, there are two new tabs that pop up when you click on a chart, the design and the format. Now the format I haven't used yet, right? But I will, and I'll show you how to use that format chart as well. Format tab for your charts as well. And then there are chart elements. So you can either use the ribbon and go to design and add chart elements, or you can use this plus sign here that is part of your chart and add the chart elements. You see, it depends on what version you have. Some of us have a version that have these shortcut buttons, and some of us don't. Well, luckily, everything's on the ribbon. So if you didn't even want to use these shortcut buttons, you don't have to. You can certainly go up and use the ribbon as well. Remember, we changed the chart style. And so if we wanted to use the shortcut, that would be the paintbrush button, or we would go up to the chart styles on the ribbon under the design tab. Now we can also format the values. So the values can be, maybe their money, maybe their number of boxes sold. So let's jump back over to this spreadsheet. And say, for example, this was the number of dollars. So I'll change this right now and I'll put dollar signs here. All right. I'll go back to chart 2 and notice there are dollar signs automatically placed here. I'll go back to chart 1. Notice there are dollar signs automatically placed. So the format of your original data, and even if the format changes, your chart will automatically comply. Now I'm going to hit undo and go back to chart 2. So I took away the dollar signs, as you quickly probably noticed. On the left-hand side, you can see the numbers, and these can be clicked on. And do you see how they're all in one kind of like a text box? And you can actually go, for example, home, and the font size is 9, and I could change that to 12 if I wanted to and make it bigger. See how larger it got? Maybe I want to bold it. See how much darker it gets? And I can also format this. So let me go to my button over here on the right, and I can change the style of the cells itself in the chart. And I can double click if I want over here on a number, and look what happens on the right hand side. Several choices come up. So what did I do? I double clicked on this. Remember, this is the vertical axis. Remember, these are the shortcuts. And when I double clicked on the right hand side, I got the format access with several options here. So I could change the minimum and the maximum and the units of my scale. So right now they go every 20. And if I decide to change that, maybe I want it to go every 10. I could change the major, so I'll change that to 10 and hit enter and change from 0 to 160. Let's change that to that's 150 is good. Okay. So I reset it back to 20 there. Horizontal access is automatic. I can display the units and decide if it's millions, hundreds, thousands. So let's say it's hundreds or thousands. You can see that it has changed and given me the decimal places. Put that back to none. I can change the tick marks and have tick marks, major and minor tick marks. And those are basically little dashes that can be used. I can position the labels, and I can, here's number category, and I can choose currency here, and the numbers change. So that's a lot of work to change the look of the values when all I really had to do was go to the spreadsheet and format the cells, and the chart looks at the format of the cells and automatically complies in the chart. I like that better, to be honest with you. It's a little easier. But some of us have used charts for so long, we're used to using these types of options that we're looking for it. Okay? All right. So you've got your different types of tick marks and your minimums and your maximums and your units. So your major units are the lines that are going to go across for your 0 to 20. And so if I change this, I thought I changed it to 10, and it should automatically work. Here we go. You see it? So someone's asking in the chat, definitely, it's a great question, by the way. So if I change it to 10, notice 10, 20, 30, 40, and so forth. So if I change that by double clicking, remember this pops up, and I can certainly take a look at my axes options on the right, and say I change it back to 20, okay? And I come back over here and I click, and now you'll see on the left-hand side, so you've got to click back on your chart, everybody, and you'll see the changes made. So this is definitely a way to customize your charts and make them look more visually interesting. Now, you get the choices up on your ribbon, but sometimes all you have to do is double click on a piece of the chart and make a change. For example, this dark red is the mint cookie. It actually says it when I point to it. If I click on those once, so just that one tab or column, I'll call it once, you'll see that all the columns for mint are now selected. You see that? I can go to Format up on the ribbon. Shape Fill is the button that I'm looking for, and I could change that to any color that I want. I'll change that to green, and they'll all change to a green. Now I could have just double clicked on the column as well and looked over here and then looked at the paintbrush for the fill color here. And maybe I want to make it a pattern fill, so I can use a pattern and choose the pattern and put that pattern in and make sure that when I click, I can, when I choose these, I'm not just choosing one, I can choose all of them and put the pattern in. And I can do it individually, or I can do it as we go up to all of them, to each category anyways. So I'm just going to hit undo and leave those green just so you can see them. So you can double click on each piece of the pie, chart, bar chart, line chart, any kind of chart, and make a change. You can use the ribbon, and the ribbon has design and format to make changes. So either way. Now just remember, when you double click on a chart piece, whatever the piece is, you will get a bar on the right hand side that'll give you all kinds of choices that you can make. So keep that in mind. Each piece of this chart has different changes you can make. You can make things bolder, darker, bigger, colors. There's all kinds of things that you can do. For example, the background. If I double click on this background, I can, let's see, maybe I can change the color. Oh, look at that. I did yellow. That's a terrible color. But did you see how quickly I did that? Let me hit undo. I can double click on this background. What will pop up is this format chart area, and I'm looking for the fill color of what I've clicked on. And I could even put a pattern in the background or a texture fill in the background. There are all kinds of things that I can do just by learning that if I double click on a piece of the chart, no matter what kind of chart I have, you can certainly change them. And somebody put yuck for the yellow. It was just to get your attention. Definitely don't want to keep that. You are right. So how are you doing with this? Is this making sense? You have the ribbon, design and format. you also have the opportunity to just double click. And it won't matter which chart you're using, whether it's a definitely a chart that is a line chart. I can double click on the lines and I can do a solid line or a gradient line or change the color of the line and change the width of the line. So if I want the line to be thicker, notice I'm making this blue line a lot thicker. Why? Because maybe I'm all about the mint cookie and I want to talk about the sales of the mint cookie, so I'm making that a little bit thicker. Please take a look. There are so many choices, and again, we could play all day and make this more visually interesting. But that's your job, to make it visually interesting based on the data. And how did you definitely create this? Oh, you just highlighted all of your values and labels. Now, I want to talk about, what if I wanted to build a chart that just shows the totals of the cookies? All right, so pay attention to this for a second. I'm going to highlight cookies week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'm going to hold down the control key, because when you select and you hold down the control key, that means and I want to highlight total and these numbers across. So I didn't highlight any of the labels or numbers, values in between. Now I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to do a pie chart this time. And I'll do just a simple two-dimensional pie chart because it's easier to see. And what is this pie chart about? The totals. So I'm going to close this area on the right. I'm going to bring this over here so that you can see it, maybe make it a little bit bigger for you. And I want you to notice week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 totals. So if I bring my mouse to the first piece of the pie here, that teal color, that says that that's week 5, and that's 19% of the total. Wouldn't I like these labels on this pie chart? So what should I do? Well, let's take a look at our ribbon and the Design tab. Let's take a look at the first button on the left that says Add Chart Element. When I click on Add Chart Element, I might want some data labels. Now, I'll be honest with you, all of these labels are great, but I like to do this option here for more. The last option is more data label options. So now when I click on this, look on the right-hand side. I'm going to move this over a little bit. Okay. All right, here, let me hit undo so you can see. Hit undo again. I'll move this over a little bit. What did I do? I did Add Chart Elements, Data Labels, More. And this window pops up. So right now, the default is adding in values, which I'll keep. I want to add in percentages, and I also want to add in the category name. Now, I do want you to notice that the font size for all of these text boxes is pretty big, so I might go home. Maybe I'll reduce the size so they fit better in the box. And maybe black is not a great color. Maybe I'll use white or some yellow, but I think I'll use white and see how that looks. What do you think about this? Let me make it larger for you. So I've put in week 5, 221, which is the total, but it's 19% of the total. So 2 things here. How did I highlight just the 2 lines of values and text that I wanted to work with? I highlighted by itself cookies all the way to week 5, and then I held down the control key and I highlighted total all the way across to 221. And then I built my chart. And then I decided to add a chart element. And what was that element that I wanted to add? I wanted to add in all of my labels. Now, some of you decide that you might not want the labels, and you certainly can do that as well. Maybe you decide that you want a different color in the charts. You can go to Design and choose the different styles that you would like, the different colors that you would like to use. You can also take a look, notice where the sizing handles are. Can you see those little circles? they're all around the pie, right? And let's say I click once on this week 5 and then I drag it out. So I can drag the box out. Oops, sorry, let me hit redo. Or I can drag the whole slice of the pie out. And I can explode it. That's called an exploding piece of the pie. So I can drag that back in. Now I can click out in the gray dark area here and click one more time, just once on the pie, and drag, and it will explode the whole pie. So be careful what you're clicking on and what you're dragging on. You can always hit undo if you decide that you don't want to do what you want to do, or what you've done. And you can also click on these boxes and drag them out individually, and there'll be a leader line. So that line right there that connects to that is a leader line. So if you prefer, for example, if you have a very small piece of the pie, so let's say, let's go to week 2, change that to 8. And so that doesn't change the total very much, but I'm going to copy this down. And that changes the total quite a bit. See this little red piece of the pie? That's a very small slice, and it's hard to get the title into that slice. So what Excel will do is put the title on the outside. And if you wanted to grab any of these and move them further, you certainly can. And that leader line will connect them to that particular slice. So the formatting piece of the pie, the bar, the line chart, is the most time consuming. So creating the chart was easy, but now formatting the chart for the audience, making it look good, making it have the right information, making it pointing out the data that you want to point out to, whether you want to switch the data or you want to make it a line chart or a pie chart. So, but the visuals are very important. So just think about it. You can double click on a piece of the pie, or you can come up and choose design or format. And remember, there's a lot of automatics that are going to happen because I'm using version 16. And so version 16 and 19 are so much the same. 13 changed, so from 13 to 16 it changed a little bit. And in version 10, there weren't always these choices, so you want to check that out as well. All right, what do you think so far? Looking good? Making sense? All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint and see what else we can learn. So the legend options was another thing that I could click on and decide if I wanted to put it on the top, the bottom, the left, or the right, or decide to show the legend at all. So that's, and I can shade the legend in my legend options. So that's just by double clicking on the legend as well. We noticed that we could add chart elements, and we just added the pie chart elements, which were the labels. And so all of the choices that you have in chart elements, adding them, will have choices here, but then there's also more. So sometimes I like to just go to the more and see what all the choices are. But other times, oh, I see the choice right here in the list, so I'm going to choose that choice. Remember, you can format an axis as we did on the left and versus on the right. So on the left, it's the maximum was 700, and on the right, we changed it to a 50 major unit. And so I wanted to show a visual of that. So before and after. And remember, if you format the numbers in the chart, in the source data, the chart will automatically change. All right, have you ever needed to create a combination chart? Maybe you have data that is, maybe, for example, you might be charting the dollar versus the yen and what the value is. And so, for example, one of the pieces you want as a column chart, and the other piece you want, in this case, it's a line chart. So notice I've got sales and profits. So the sales are in blue and the profits are in orange. So a combination chart. And so all you have to do is select the data and choose a combination chart. But let's take a look for just a moment. Let me take a look at this. So I did create a combination chart based on this data right here. So I want you to notice I have months and sales and profits, right? So I wouldn't want the sales to be charted against the profits. I would want the profits to be different. Now, is there something called a combination chart? Yes. If I go to Insert, you will see that there's a whole bunch of charts here, and you'll see that combination chart is part of. And so if I click on this and click down on More, you'll see here lots of choices for each one. And there's a combo. So combo is the name of it. And I can click on a combo chart and decide how I want the chart to look. So of course I would highlight my data, go to More, go to Combo, and notice at the bottom how easy this is. The sales will be in blue, clustered column, but I can click the down arrow and decide, no, I want it to be an area chart or something if I decided to do, or a stacked, or a horizontal bar. And then the default is a line chart for the profits. And I could change the color and have a secondary axis as well, or axes they call it. And I can click OK. And I can build that chart as simply and fast as I just did. Pretty good? So a combo chart. Now sometimes what Excel will do, I'm going to delete that, is I highlight, I go to Insert, and notice there's this choice for recommended charts. If I click on recommended charts, look what it recommends. I could show a chart that shows the bars based on sales versus profits. Okay? I could do a line chart showing sales versus profits over those months of time. I could do a stacked column chart, which would show, again, sales versus profits. An area chart. And I'm keep on coming down, and these are the charts that Excel looked at my data and recommended. Now notice they didn't recommend a combo chart, but that's something of your choice as well. And I would prefer a combo chart, but these charts are pretty good as well, depending on what you're trying to bring across in that point of time that you have to display this data. What do you think about that? So I'm just going to hit undo for a second and bring this back. And here's the combo chart using the sales versus the profits. And I could even use a second axis on the right-hand side for the profits as well. All right. Any questions? Let me know. Now, here's where I feel you could get in trouble if you don't watch what I'm going to do. And I'll quickly demonstrate it. But I just love this feature. How many of you work with multiple worksheets? Go ahead and put that in the chat. Multiple worksheets. And what would be on those multiple worksheets? So if you say yes, also give me an idea of what's on those sheets. Are they expenses? Are they sales? Are they different months? Different years? Number of people? I'm seeing that in the chat. So the dollars raised over time, expenses for different periods of time. So people are putting in great information. Billing for months. It's great. Excellent. Income for every month, one per sheet. Quarterly charitable contributions, so every quarter. Great. So sometimes you want to build a chart based on multiple worksheets. How many of you have ever done a chart based on multiple worksheets before? Somebody put in the chat that they did one, but it was kind of tricky. And I would have to agree that it is tricky. So notice there's 6 steps. So let's look at the 6 steps first, and then let's demonstrate how it's done. Notice you're going to have a worksheet with the data in it. That was understood, so I didn't put that on the directions. So I want you to notice, I'm going to go to a spreadsheet that has multiple worksheets in it. Here we go. April has April expenses for Jackson. May has May expenses for Jackson. Jackson is a salesperson. June has June travel expenses. And then I created a first quarter chart, and I'm going to delete this, but I'll show it to you first so you can see what we're about to make. We're about to make, take a look, a chart that shows car rental for April, May, and June expenses, totaling them up. Separating them, yes, but putting car rental for April, car rental for May, car rental for June. Same thing with airfare, hotel, food, parking, and tolls. They're all based on these expenses. Now, just another point is that each one of these spreadsheets, for example, the expenses down to the totals, they are all in cells A3 to A10 in April, A3 to A10 in May, A3 to A10 in June. So when you do this, it's easier if all of the spreadsheets are set up exactly the same. It is easier if you do that. All right, so I'm just going to add in another sheet. And let's bounce back to the directions so that you can see. You insert a blank chart into a worksheet, and then you're going to right-click on that blank chart and choose the data from each one of these sheets. You're going to be highlighting the cell that has the name of the series, and you're going to highlight the cells with the series information, and you're going to keep repeating and adding depending on how many sheets you have. So if you have 12 sheets, you're going to do this 12 times. Does that make sense? So let's take a look and see if I can do it. So I'm going to go back to my worksheet. And remember, I have April, May, and June, and now I'm in a separate worksheet. And I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to come to a column chart. Maybe I'll do a 2D column chart, and it's blank because I didn't highlight any text. I didn't highlight any values. So it's empty. Great, that's what I need. Then I'm going to right-click on the chart itself and choose this choice called Select Data. When I click on Select Data, I am going to get this dialog box. Okay? Now this dialog box, I want to show you, is listed here. I've got an image of it empty, and then I've got an image of it filled. So our goal is to show each series, the series name and the values. Okay? All right, so let's go back to Excel and see what we can do. So I'm going to click on this button for Add, and I'm going to go to April. And the series name in April is going to be April expenses in cell A3. And then the values. Now, let's see, what if I highlight the labels and the values? Do you see what I'm going to get? I'm going to get this error message. The reference is not valid. Oh, I don't put the labels and the values here. What I do is highlight just the values. So April, the name of this series is the April expenses, and the values. Now, I could have done, for example, Jackson instead, but this is April for Jackson. Each one of these is Jackson for the different sheet, for the different months. So that's why I did April. Now look what I'm going to do. I'm going to click OK. And that added April expenses And then I want you to notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 represent? That represents, let me edit, and let me go back to April. And those represent the 5 expenses. So I'm able to put the labels in there, and I only have to put those labels in there once. And then I'm going to go to add again because I have 2 more sheets. So I'll click add. I'll go to May. So all I'm doing is clicking. I'm not worried about this box sitting here. It'll still sit here. I click on May. I click on cell A3. That's where May expenses is. I'm going to click here and highlight all of my values. And click OK. Now, these labels for May, I'd like to see those. So if I do edit and I go to May, I can highlight those labels. See, each one of these is going to be a different part of the chart. And can you see the chart in the background being formed? All right, I have 1 more month. I'll click on add. And I'll click on the sheet that says June. And I'll click in cell A3 for the name. And I'll click in the series value and just highlight over what's there with, in this case, June B4, absolutely B4 through B9. I click OK. And I don't think I need to edit again, but I'll edit just to show you each time I could highlight these cells with the labels in them. I only really need to do it once because each one of these has the same exact labels for each one of these sheets. Now I'm going to click on OK, and here's my beautiful chart. And that chart represents car rental for April, for May, and for June. But where's my legends? I don't have any. How do I know which color is which? Well, let's go add. Now remember, I can use this button right up here, or I could use, get rid of this. Oops. Sometimes this gets in the way. I could use adding a chart element here. And so I want to add in a legend. So I'll put legend. And down the bottom will be fine. Or I could put it over by using this little arrow. Maybe I want it on the top. And I'll put it on the top there just so you can see the difference. Okay? All right. And getting these out of the way sometimes can be a problem. Let me move this. Move that out of there. So here is my chart. And I want to show you for April. April is blue for car rental. You see the small column? I'm going to go back to April and make a change to this number for car rental. I'm going to say that it wasn't $75, it was $750. So I'm going to type 750 and hit enter. And then I'll go back to my sheet where my chart is, and notice the axes on the left automatically changes. The car rental blue column gets larger. The text in April, May, June, the values in April, May, June are all automatically linked to this chart. And whatever you learned with the charts that we learned before, whether we created them from one sheet or several sheets, you still can go to design. You can still make the change, make it look better, make it visually interesting. You can still go to add chart elements and maybe add a chart title if you don't have it, and put in a chart title. You can certainly put in whatever you want. And so these were the second quarter. So maybe I'll do second quarter, or I'll just put quarter expenses. And you can see now I've got a chart based on 3 sheets. And let's take a look. Here are the instructions. And you can even watch videos on this. So if you go in Google, maybe you go to YouTube and you Google creating charts from multiple worksheets, there'll be people that are teaching with videos on just that particular topic and give you, just more explanation and also, as I did, a visual, just a tutorial on how to do it. So check that out. Any questions with combining, not combining, but taking from multiple worksheets and extracting the many data series that you might have in multiple worksheets and creating one chart from those multiple worksheets? Any questions at all that you have right now? Go ahead and put those in the chat. So I don't see anything, but you might be typing, so I'll give you a chance to do that. All right. Oh, good. Somebody said they're learning new ways to create charts. Great, because there are so many different things that you could create. And there are so many different charts that you could create as well. And for some of you, the charts, and this is the rest of there are 8 steps. So this is the rest of what you would do here. So when you're creating a chart from multiple worksheets and you're looking at my data that I'm going to be able to download to you today, notice there are 2 slides with the directions. So please note, don't just think it ends on step number 6. You could see that I did a lot more, and I have visuals for those as well. Some of you are interested in Gantt charts, and Gantt charts, what I would say, are something that are for data analysis. And I just wanted to throw that in there so that you would know what a Gantt chart looked like. And some people have asked me in the past, how do you create one of these? And what are they? Along with histogram charts and all kinds of different charts. And I just wanted to give you some advice. When you're going to create a chart based on data, notice I have the data that has the start date, the end date, and the duration of the time that it took for a particular project, and this was a training project. You might want to see the start date versus the duration in a sense of for how long this training took. And this is a great example. You can build something like this as well. And this is just, again, just a column chart that's on its side, but taking time. So a Gantt chart is a breakdown of start and finishes, and the relationship between them based on a project that you want to create. And I just put the directions so that you're able to do it. And a lot of the times people want to create Gantt charts from scratch. No, it's not the case. You can start and create a Gantt chart from a 2-dimensional bar chart or a stacked bar chart. And these are some directions that I've given you. So just some added information about charts. Oh, before we do the slide transfer, let's go back and take a look at the different types of charts. So were there any questions on the different types of charts? And remember, where are those different types of charts? So when you go to a spreadsheet, so I'll go to this spreadsheet because I want to show you one more thing before we're done. When you go to a spreadsheet, remember you've got labels and you've got values, right? And you highlight them all. And remember, there are 3 ways to build a chart. You can go up to Insert and choose a chart. You can actually do a recommended chart and see what Excel is going to give you. You can use F11. You can also use remember this button? Quick Analysis tool. And the Quick Analysis tool, remember when you click on it, has charts which you're able to choose. Now, some of you are mentioning a scatter chart. Some of you are mentioning the waterfall charts. So the data that you would have to build those is important first. So for example, look, I can point to scatter and I can create a scatter chart from this data, but is this data really the right data for a scatter chart? Am I comparing 2 sets of values or pairs of data? No. But even though it's going to put the data into a scatter chart, it's not the right data. So keep that in mind. Your data charts are going to be very important. The charts that you create are going to be very important based on the data that you have, of course, as well. And then some of you are asking about the waterfall charts. So waterfall charts are, let's take a look. Where do I have my waterfall charts? Here we go. So a waterfall chart is used to show how, the value increased or decreased over different series leading up to like a final value. So if I click on waterfall chart right here, here we go. I have an example. So notice the months are at the top. I've got sales for every month. And I have accumulation. So it's accumulating. So 2,300 was for January. That's added to the 3,000 sales in February. So I want to see the accumulation as well as I want to see maybe the monthly sales as well. And so I would use a waterfall chart. So check that out. I would say I don't typically demonstrate it, but I have this visual for you to help you understand what it is. So check that out. Maybe get a little video and take a look at it. But what I do want to demonstrate right now, and thank you for those questions, by the way, I want to demonstrate a spark line, a trend line. So you do notice that I have here this column that's empty, and I want to put a trend line in there. And I want to put the trend line based on this data right here. So these values. So if I highlight the values and I go to the quick analysis button, trend lines are considered as well spark lines. So I'm going to click on spark lines, and I could do win-loss or columns in there or lines. So I'm going to click on line. And there's my trend of January through June in a cell. So a spark line or a trend line. So I can do a trend. I can have a line chart that shows a trend, but that's its own object. It's a line chart, right? This is showing you what we call spark lines that are going to be added to a cell based on the data that you highlighted. So let me hit undo. And again, I highlight just the values. I'm leaving this column empty. And I'm going to the quick analysis tool button. So I'm sorry if you don't have it, but I'm going to click on it so you can see. I'll go to spark lines and I'll choose line. And what if I decided that I wanted, maybe this was, for example, I'll go to spark line and choose columns. So I can see right away, let me click the mouse, so that I could see columns in there instead of the trend line. I like the trend line because it's time. January, February, March, all the way to June is time, right? But I could also see, based on each month, which book sales was the highest. And so I can see that for fiction, January was the highest without even having to look at the numbers. And then if I look at nonfiction, I can see that April was the highest without even looking at the numbers. Or if I decide to use the trend line, spark lines again, I'll use a line. I can see, oh, January was a good month. We did a little less sales in February. I'm looking at fiction, by the way, and it goes up in April, May. May was down a little bit and June was up. So I can tell by the line. Okay? So someone says that I sparked a new trend. Good, of using trend lines. I love it. All right. What do you think? So those are in quick analysis tools. Now, just to remind you, I love the quick analysis tool because again, I can highlight. I can use the quick analysis tool to format, to do charts, tables, spark lines, but I'll click on charts again, and I can click on more charts and get a list of all the different types of charts and see what I even, maybe what Excel is recommending. So if I recommend, so in this case, the scatter chart is here, the column chart, clustered column, the area chart, the horizontal bar chart, the stacked horizontal bar chart. So there are so many different choices, and I'm going to let Excel recommend those charts to me, and then I could click up here to all charts and decide what chart I prefer to use. Okay? Now I'll be honest with you. I don't use the tree map or the box and whisker as much, and I use the general basic charts, but you might have a definite need for one of those, and that's why I put in the presentation what each chart does. But I like the recommended charts. I like to see what Excel recommends so that I can say, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to be able to visually show each particular piece of the pie, or a line to show across time, or whatever it might be in comparison. Maybe I'm using a clustered column chart to compare. All right, what do you think, everybody? Because it is time right now to jump to the end of this presentation where I'm going to be able to do a